Hi you guys, welcome in to our CS and math lesson for today on the right triangle check in Python. So before we get started, again as CS and math, our goal is to take math standards and partner them with code to make math more applicable, and we realize that code is in the future in terms of college and career readiness. So we're taking the math standard today of the Pythagorean theorem, and we're going to bring this to life with code. So let's take a look first of all at this Pythagorean theorem typical question we may ask as we're teaching this. So looking at this first section of this Kudo worksheet, do the following lengths form a right triangle? We're going to create a program today in Python that will answer this question for us. So as we come in here today, we're going to start with a nice definition in our code following this hashtag or pound sign, and we're going to need to get input from our user of the side lengths of our triangle. So let's go ahead and start with side A. Comments are really nice above this section of code because if we came into a program, it's easy to figure out what parts of the code are doing what. So side A, we're going to get some input from our user. We're going to ask what is, we could say the length of side A, what is side A, so forth. We're going to need all three sides here for this program. Side A, we'll do a little copy paste to make this a little quicker. Side B, and side C. So right now as we run our program, it's going to ask us on this right hand side, that's where we'll see our ability to input what is side A. If I come back to this worksheet, we'll look at this first example. So again, we don't create these programs aside from math, we're partnering with math. So to use this program here, students would need to have the understanding that our hypotenuse, side C, is the longest side. So we've got 6, 8, and 9. 6, 8, and we'd have to be sure that side C is 9. Now, our program isn't doing anything from here because all we've done so far is get some input. So the next part of our program, we're going to be needing to do some calculation to figure out if this is going to be a right triangle or not. So we're going to need an if-else. We're going to have if, potentially here, what we're going to try and do, if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we will have a right triangle. If that pattern does not hold true, then our triangle is not a right triangle. So in the parentheses here, let's go ahead and we'll say side A, so the input they gave us. Here's a way we can type squared into our Python program here. So a squared plus side b squared. If this equals, and we'll need a double equal sign here for our value. If this equals side c squared, then we do have a right triangle. So at the end of this statement, notice how we're going to indent a little bit after this if statement here. We're going to go ahead and print for our users. Your triangle is a right triangle. Now, if this is true, that's what we'll print. But otherwise, we can have an else situation here. So if a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared, our program is going to be directed to follow what's under this else part of our program. So if a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared, we want to share with our user, your triangle is not a right triangle. So let's run this and see what happens. So what is side A? We'll go with our same example, 6, 8, and 9. Now notice here as I run this program, this red line pops up and nothing printed as I was expecting it to. So this red line is going to indicate to us that we have an error. And we can scroll down here and it's really nice that it's going to share with us what's going on with our error in our code. So this says that we're trying to, on line 8, operate here with a string and an integer. So one thing in Python that we need to be clear about as we receive input from our user is Python reads this as a string input. So we're expecting it to get some sort of word. But you'll notice the input that we are expecting from our user is a number. So we would need to let Python know that we're expecting an integer as our input. Because as we go down to line 8 where our error is happening, we can't do math here with words. We need to be using numbers as we square these values. So let's run this now and let's try again. 6, 8, 9. So our triangle is not a right triangle. Now let's come back to CUDA and we'll scroll down actually to the answer key portion of this worksheet. And indeed, we should get this is not a right triangle. Let's try a yes example here. So we have 5, 12, and 13. 5, 12, 13. Your triangle is a right triangle. Perfect. One thing I want to add here is just a period at the end of that statement. Now let's come down to number 5, and let's try an example here without our picture. So we have 6.4, 12, and 12.2. And we get that red line again. So let's figure out what's going on. Scrolling down here. So we have an invalid input here for our integer. So keep in mind when we use this word integer, that's expecting a whole number, and we've just tried to type in a decimal. So that we're going to need to change this value to a float if we are expecting our user to input any sort of decimal. And in this example, for sure, we do expect some decimals. So notice how this is going to work now. 6.4, 12, and 12.2. Oops. 6.4, 12, and 12.2. Your triangle is not a right triangle, and again, we can check that, which that does match, but we do want to make sure here, the important piece of this is since I've got some decimals here, this float value did end up fixing this error in the code. So here we are, your right triangle check.